What's on, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Ross, I like games, and today we've got another lovely new Transformers card that we need to be having a little bit of a look at. It is Raider Caliburst, and it has been revealed by one of the lovely articles written by the lovely folks over at Transformers TCG HQ. I'm kind of loving them, if I'm honest with you, and I kind of like Caliburst, because it's pretty nice at punishing your opponent for having a card advantage. So if we start off having a look at the basics, we've got a 6-star character, which is quite nice. It is just low enough to use Peace Through Tyranny to get a KO, give yourself an extra turn, and of course being a Battle Master means that you get to straight away get it as an upgrade. Start using it. Stats aren't good. Free attack, 8 health, 1 defense, not strong. I mean, the free attack, to be fair, on a 6 cost is alright, but the stats are fairly poor. But we do like the skill here. When your opponent draws a card, if they've already drawn a card this turn, your opponent chooses one of their characters and does 1 damage to it. Now, this is what I like to refer to as cheeky damage, and I absolutely love it. Now, quick side note here, this is more frag toss than it is zap, by which I mean your opponent gets to choose where the damage goes, not you. And then of course you got all the kinds of stuff like Captain Ironhide and Motor Master, whereby you can essentially direct the damage to a character that cannot take non-attack damage, and then the damage isn't done in boo hiss, etc. But I mean, look, Motor Master saw a little bit of play a while ago. That seems to have calmed down quite a bit. There aren't that many people playing those kind of cards, so it's really not such a huge problem. And this can be really, really nice. Now, sometimes you will come across a deck that is just aiming to draw cards. I mean, we all like Cliff Jumper, right? Cliff Jumper's one of those good cards. When you transfer a car into bot mode, yay, draw a card and take a damage. Bunch of people are out there playing Pep Talk. Draw 2 cards and take 2 damage. And this can add up very, very quickly indeed. But right off the bat, I think there is one combo with this which is just better than other combos. At least it's one that I love. It's Shockwave. Wave 1 Shockwave. I adore Wave 1 Shockwave. You see, Wave 1 Shockwave has a lovely skill whereby if your opponent discards a card from their hand, they have to take a damage onto one of their characters. And at this stage, I want to combine that with System Reboot. Because now, when you play System Reboot, both players scrap their hand and draw 4 cards. So now your opponent is scrapping 4 cards, so Shockwave goes, right, well now you need to take 4 damage counters onto your characters because you scrapped 4 cards. And then you draw 4 cards, and Raider Caliburst says, well, hang on a second, if you're drawing 4 cards, you've got to take 4 damage onto your characters. So playing System Reboot drops 8 damage. And yes, I know your opponent gets a choice of where that damage goes, alright? But to put it another way, Bolt of Lightning does 3 damage. Now you do get to direct it, but Bolt of Lightning drops 3 damage and has no battle icon, and is a star card. So if you're dropping 8 damage, yeah, that's pretty gosh darn phenomenal. And the other side of Shockwave is pretty gosh darn good as well. When you flip to this mode, each player draws 2 cards. Now, of course, what would be amazing here is if you flip it into alt mode, and then you draw 2 cards, that is both players, and then you flick back into alt mode, and then play something like a System Reboot. So now your opponent has drawn 2 cards, taken 2 damage. Then they discard 6 with System Reboot, assuming they had 4 cards to begin with, and take 6 damage. And then they draw 4 cards, so they take another 4 damage. And this is not actually that hard to pull off, because let's not forget that Shockwave is a spaceship, so you have unconventional flying objects. And what unconventional flying object says, flick one of your spaceships to bot mode, then back to alt mode. So you flick it into bot mode, then back into alt mode, both players draw 2 cards, and then you can just flick for the turn, to get back into bot mode, and your opponent has to take the damage when you play System Reboot. And of course, the 2 cards you draw when you flick into alt mode will make it more likely that you do draw into that System Reboot. Or maybe you play it with a little bit of the old Private Fix-It, because of course, if you're loving System Reboot, Private Fix-It has a skill which is just System Reboot. You tap it, you scrap a white icon card from your hand, and then each player scraps their hand and draws 4 cards. And of course, this is a tap skill, so it can be used in addition to System Reboot. That's kind of phenomenal, although of course remember that System Reboot and Unconventional Flying Object are a little bit of a pain, so if you do want to use the 2 of them together, you've got to use Brainstorm. Now, a moment ago, I suggested trying to get this rolling in 1 turn. Either you need to use Brainstorm, or you need to use Fix-It instead of System Reboot. To be clear, 1 action per turn. Though we've got a couple ways around it. I adore this. I've just given you 1 example of a kind of deck that I'm looking to make with it. The deck that excites me. And as a side note, Shockwave is an 11-star character. Caliburst is a 6-star character, which puts you up to 17. Fix-It is a 4-star character, which puts you up to 21, at which point you would be able to add either another 4-star character, which is likely what you're probably going to be doing, or you can play around with some star cards. Now, one thing you need to remember here, of course, is that this is a Battle Master. So that means that once it goes away, it's gone. When the bot mode gets KO'd, it turns into an upgrade and gets attached. When the upgrade gets removed, it goes into your discard pile. You can use Quartermaster to get it back, but unfortunately, you cannot get it back as a robot. At least, that is not possible at the moment. Who knows what the deal will be in the future. So if you build your entire deck around this bot mode skill, that might be a little bit awkward, especially if your opponent goes after it. You've been warned. You've been warned. But then in alt mode, we're loving it as well. Gives you +3 attack, which to be fair is pretty gosh darn high. It's just like Leap into Battle, except you get to keep it, which is pretty cool. But of course, as a Battle Master, that's not all it does. They've always got a little bit of something else going on. When the upgraded character attacks and your opponent has more cards in hand than you, your opponent chooses a card from their hand and scraps it. Incidentally, if you do have Shockwave out, that means they take a damage counter. And then you draw a card. Well, if you're playing around with System Reboot and Fix-It here, you can fix it so this works. Use either of them, both players are reset to a 4-card hand. Play a card. Done. Your opponent now has more cards in hand than you, and this will work. And if your opponent is scrapping a card from their hand, and it is your opponent's choice, they can choose whichever card they want. There's no chance here that you might accidentally randomly discard their best card. Not working, unfortunately. Your opponent does get a choice. They're going to choose their least relevant card at the moment. Boo hiss, etc. But the fact of the matter is, you still get to get a card out of their hand. They will still take a damage if you're playing Shockwave. You still get to draw a card. Make no mistake about it, it's pretty gosh darned lovely. I am a big fan of this. Now, to be fair, right, I have wanted to make Decepticon Shockwave work since Wave 1 came out. And it's never been amazing. Maybe this will work. Maybe the bot mode isn't around long enough to make it viable. What I will say is, I absolutely love it. Now, it is worth pointing out that we have actually had another card we've already seen from Wave 4, which discourages your opponent from drawing extra cards. It is Hijack. Hijack is a secret action. You reveal it if your opponent would draw a second card during their turn, and then every time your opponent would draw a card, you draw a card instead. Now that does have a green icon, so that means if you flip it while attacking or defending, you can at the end of the battle swap it for a card in your hand, guaranteeing that you will draw into it sooner rather than later. That's lovely. It is up to you where you want to go. If you're worried about your opponent drawing a lot of extra cards, I mean, look, Hijack is the better option if you just want to stop them drawing. Any cards they draw are replaced by cards that you draw. So if what you're trying to do is stop your opponent drawing, clearly this is the way to go. But you know I've been a cheeky damage fan, so Hijack is more of a hard, you will not draw cards. Caliburst is more of a, go on then, draw some cards. I'm going to get me an advantage out of this. So I like Caliburst. I don't think I've been shy about that. I'm a big fan. I've told you what I'm thinking in terms of a deck, but I'd like to know what you're thinking. So let me know in the comment section. Go nuts. Be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, and follow me on Twitter at the Wossy, where we talk about, well, Transformers and any other games that take our fancy. And please do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCGradio, where you can get some bonus podcasts, support the channel. There's a lot of fun stuff going on over there. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching Wossy Plays.